Warmaster Thyzen stood before the holographic display, his crystalline form refracting the cold blue light of 1,000 tactical markers. Each marker represented a ship, a battalion, a piece of the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever known. The Zephrani Empire had conquered 847 worlds over 3 millennia. Not once had they tasted defeat. Not once had they hesitated. Today would be no different. The target rotated before him, a blue and green sphere called Earth, third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. The humans who inhabited it were young by galactic standards, barely 2 centuries into faster-than-light travel. They occupied 12 worlds, all clustered in this backwater sector. They possessed resources the Empire needed, rare metals concentrated in asteroid belts, agricultural output that could feed a dozen worlds, and most importantly, strategic positioning along a key trade corridor. Thyzen had reviewed the intelligence reports with the thoroughness that had earned him his rank. Humanity fielded 89 military vessels of outdated design. Their weapons technology lagged behind Zephrani standards by at least 50 years. Their ground forces numbered in the millions, but millions of primitives meant little against Zephrani battle armor and directed energy weapons. There was one curious note in the files that Thyzen had dismissed: Earth's classification as a Category 9 death world. He came from Zephyrin Prime, a Category 2 world of stable tectonics, predictable weather, and carefully balanced ecosystems. Category 9 seemed excessive. Surely the humans were exaggerating their homeworld's dangers to discourage invasion. The Galactic Council had made their position clear through careful silence. They would not intervene. Humanity had made itself tiresome with constant complaints about fairness, about rights, about equality among species. The Council would not mourn if the humans learned their place in the galactic hierarchy. Thyzen gave the order. 500 warships dropped from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's system and began their approach. The human response came exactly 14 minutes later. Their 89 defense vessels emerged from orbital positions and lunar bases, forming a defensive screen around their homeworld. Thyzen permitted himself a moment of respect. They would fight, at least. That was more than some species had done. The battle lasted 2 hours. The humans fought with a ferocity that surprised him. Their ships were individually weaker, but their pilots flew with reckless courage, exploiting every advantage of terrain, using the planet's satellite and orbital debris as cover. They destroyed 3 Zephrani vessels and damaged a dozen more before the inevitable mathematics of warfare caught up with them. And then, inexplicably, they ran. The entire human fleet broke formation simultaneously and jumped to faster-than-light speeds, scattering in different vectors across the system and beyond. No last stand, no suicidal charge. They simply abandoned their homeworld and fled into deep space. Thyzen's tactical officers assured him this was expected behavior. The human fleet was retreating to their colony worlds, probably hoping to establish a more defensible position there. It didn't matter. Earth was the prize, the heart of human civilization. Without it, the colonies would wither. The planetary assault began at dawn over the continent they called North America. Zephrani dropships descended through the atmosphere, meeting no resistance. Ground forces established beachheads in major population centers: New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, Sao Paulo. The humans did not fight. They watched from windows and streets as alien soldiers secured their cities. 72 hours after the first Zephrani ship entered orbit, Earth's government broadcast an unconditional surrender on all frequencies. The terms were simple. The planet would submit to Zephrani occupation. All military resistance would cease. The human population would cooperate with the new administration. It was the fastest planetary conquest in Zephrani military history. Thyzen should have felt triumph. Instead, he felt uneasy. Something was wrong. Conquests did not proceed this smoothly. There were always holdouts, guerrilla fighters, sabotage, but the humans simply complied. More unsettling were their expressions. As Thyzen walked through the occupied command center that had once housed human military leadership, he passed human workers who had volunteered to help with the transition. They followed instructions. They answered questions. They were polite, even helpful, but they were all smiling, not openly, just a slight curve at the corner of their mouths, a knowing look in their eyes, like they were privy to a joke that Thyzen had not yet heard. One human, a middle-aged man with graying hair, was helping Zephrani technicians install communications equipment. As he worked, he glanced at Thyzen and said with that same almost smile, "Hope you brought enough supplies, War Master. Earth can be demanding." Thyzen's translator rendered the words perfectly, but he could not grasp their significance. Was it a threat, a warning, simple conversation? He dismissed it as primitive defiance and moved on to more pressing concerns. The first week of occupation brought minor inconveniences that Thyzen attributed to the chaos of planetary conquest. Supply shuttles from the orbital fleet experienced unusual equipment failures during atmospheric entry. 3 crashed, their contents destroyed. Food synthesizers malfunctioned with frustrating regularity. This was critical because Zephrani biology could not process Earth food. They required their own nutrition, manufactured aboard the fleet and shipped groundside. Communication relays experienced intermittent interference. Engineers blamed Earth's magnetic field, which was apparently stronger and more chaotic than standard models predicted. Officers reported strange sounds at night, howls, screams, chittering that echoed through occupied buildings. The humans called them animals and seemed unconcerned. Most troubling were the illnesses. Zephrani soldiers stationed in the hot, wet regions humans called tropical zones began falling sick. High fevers, respiratory distress, organ failure. The medical staff was baffled. They identified the cause as microscopic organisms, viruses and bacteria that were everywhere on Earth. The same organisms that humans lived with daily, barely noticing them, were devastating to Zephrani immune systems that had evolved on a world with minimal microbial diversity. By the end of the first week, Thyzen ordered his forces to consolidate. Scattered occupation was too vulnerable. He designated fortified zones in 20 major cities and recalled his troops from rural areas and smaller settlements. The humans complied immediately. They evacuated the designated zones without protest, moving to areas that remained under nominal human control. That same knowing look in their eyes, that same subtle smile. The second week was when Thyzen began to understand his mistake. 3 supply convoys from the orbital fleet never reached their ground destinations. Investigation revealed they had been destroyed not by human weapons, but by Earth itself. The first convoy was obliterated by a hurricane that appeared with impossible speed off the coast of Florida. Meteorologists, both Zephrani and the humans they consulted, insisted the storm had formed in less than 6 hours. The humans shrugged and said sometimes that happened. The second convoy was struck by a lightning storm of such intensity that it fried every electronic system simultaneously. The dropships crashed into the ocean. No survivors. The third convoy landed successfully in Australia, but within 8 hours the supply depot was overrun. Not by human soldiers, by spiders, millions of them representing dozens of species, all venomous. The Zephrani troops abandoned the depot in panic. Their homeworld had no analogous creatures. The sight of 8-legged organisms the size of a soldier's hand, moving in coordinated swarms, broke their discipline completely. The humans helped them evacuate. They seemed sympathetic. They also seemed amused. Thyzen returned to the intelligence files and began reading the Earth dossier in detail. What he found turned his unease into creeping horror. Earth, Sol III, Category 9 Death World. Gravity, 1.2 times Zephrani standard. Thyzen realized his soldiers had been operating under constant physical stress. What felt like comfortable activity to humans was exhausting his troops. Atmosphere 21% oxygen, highly reactive, corrosive to many materials. Zephrani required filters for extended exposure. Hydrosphere 70% surface coverage. Water as a universal solvent hosting countless microscopic hostile organisms. Zephrani had no natural immunity to any of them. Weather systems chaotic, violent, unpredictable, hurricanes with wind speeds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour, tornadoes, blizzards, droughts, floods. Temperature ranges from -89 to +56 degrees Celsius at different locations. Seismic activity, constant. Tectonic plates in continuous motion. Volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, biosphere competitive, hostile. Billions of species in constant predator-prey relationships. Megafauna massing over 500 kilograms. Apex predators on every continent. Native sapient species, humans, adapted to all above conditions. Comfortable in environments that would kill most galactic species within hours. Thyzen had seen these warnings. He had dismissed them as exaggeration. Now he understood they were understatement. The third week brought the occupation to the edge of collapse. Of the 500,000 Zephrani soldiers deployed to Earth's surface, 50,000 were incapacitated by disease. Another 100,000 were combat ineffective due to environmental stress, equipment failure, or psychological breakdown. The constant screaming of Earth's wildlife, the trembling of the ground from tectonic activity, the sheer oppressive wrongness of the environment was breaking his troops. A platoon stationed in India reported being stalked by a predator. They called for backup, describing a striped creature of enormous size and impossible stealth. When they finally killed it, they discovered it was elderly and sick, half-starved and desperate. A human consultant examined the corpse and informed them it was called a tiger, and this specimen was probably 60 years old and dying of natural causes. The healthy ones, the human said with that infuriating calm, would never have been seen until too late. Supply lines were failing catastrophically. The orbital fleet was running low on provisions. Thyzen made the decision he had been avoiding and dispatched 30 ships back to Zephrani space with orders to return with supplies and reinforcements. The round trip would take 3 weeks. As those ships departed, Thyzen studied his tactical displays and felt ice crystallize in his circulatory system. His fleet was dispersed. 30 ships had just left. Another 100 were spread across Earth's orbit, maintaining coverage of the planet. 50 more were attempting to establish supply routes to the other human colony worlds, where they encountered evacuated settlements and no resistance whatsoever. He tried to contact the Galactic Council, requesting assistance or at least diplomatic pressure on the human government in exile to negotiate. The Council's response was curt. "You invaded without authorization and against our advice. This situation is your responsibility. The Council will not intervene." Long-range sensors detected something at the edge of the system. Human ships, not the 89 that had fled. Hundreds of them. They were maintaining position at the system's periphery, doing nothing. Just watching. Thyzen sent a frigate to investigate. It did not return. He sent 3 more ships. None returned. The humans were not fleeing, they were blockading. His fleet was trapped. By the start of the second month, Thyzen knew he had lost. He simply did not know how to admit it. The supply ships he had dispatched to Zephrani space never returned. Long-range communications revealed they had been intercepted and destroyed at the system's edge. The human fleet had grown. Ships from the colony worlds. New vessels. Old vessels brought out of mothballs. They formed a sphere around Earth's system and nothing passed. His forces on Earth were dying. Not in glorious battle, but from infection, from exhaustion, from accidents. A barracks in Rio de Janeiro collapsed during an earthquake. A camp in Siberia froze when heating systems failed during a cold snap that plunged temperatures to -40 degrees. A command post in the Congo was abandoned after ants, billions of them, invaded every structure and made occupation impossible. The humans watched. They provided medical assistance when asked. They offered advice on surviving Earth's environment, which worked when the Zephrani followed it but required resources they did not have. They were unfailingly polite, and they never stopped smiling that knowing smile. A message arrived from the human government. They requested a meeting to discuss terms. Terms of what they did not specify. Thyzen agreed because he had no other options. The humans who arrived were not military personnel. They were civilians. Elected officials, administrators, scientists. They came unarmed. They walked through his command center with a casual confidence that made Thyzen's warriors tense with instinctive unease. These were not the movements of prey species. These were apex predators comfortable in their domain. The leader was an elderly female named Chen. Her hair was white, her skin weathered with age, but her eyes were sharp and clear. She sat across from Thyzen without ceremony and spoke words that would echo in Zephrani military academies for generations. War Master Thyzen, we need to discuss the terms of your evacuation from Earth. Thyzen's confusion was genuine. We occupy your world. You surrendered. Chen smiled. That smile. No, War Master, we surrendered the planet, not the war. You have occupied Earth for 6 weeks. In that time, you have lost 30% of your invasion force. Not to our weapons, to disease, to wildlife, to weather, to gravity, to the planet itself. Your supply lines are cut. Your fleet is scattered. Your ships in orbit are running out of food. You are not occupying Earth, War Master. You are trapped on it. She leaned forward, and Thyzen saw something in her expression that was not cruelty. It was pity. You chose Earth because you thought it was our capital, our heart, our center of power. You were right, but you misunderstood why. Earth is not our capital because it is safe, because it is comfortable, because it is easy to defend. Earth is our capital because we are the only species in the galaxy capable of surviving it. We did not choose this world. It chose us. It made us. Every human you see has ancestors who survived ice ages that covered continents in kilometers of ice, plagues that killed half the population, predators that hunted us for food, disasters that would end your civilization. We are not tough because we train to be tough. We are tough because anything softer than us died here millions of years ago. Chen gestured to the window where Earth's sky churned with weather systems, where the ground trembled with seismic activity, where life in countless forms competed and killed and adapted. You wanted to conquer us, so we invited you to try, not in space where you are stronger, here, on Earth, where we have the advantage. Thyzen felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of military service: helplessness. You planned this from the beginning. We knew we could not win a conventional space battle, Chen confirmed. Your fleet is superior, your technology is advanced, so we did not fight that battle, we fought this one. The moment your troops landed on Earth, the siege began. Not our siege of you, your siege of yourselves. We just had to wait for Earth to do what Earth does best: kill things that do not belong here. Another human, a younger male with military bearings, spoke next. While your forces were establishing occupation, our fleet was regrouping. Ships from every human world. We called in every favor, hired every mercenary, activated every reserve vessel. We positioned around your fleet and cut your supply lines. We have spent 6 weeks securing every approach to this system. You are outnumbered now, War Master. Your fleet is running out of supplies while orbiting a planet that is killing your ground forces. You cannot win. You can only choose how much you lose. Thyzen reviewed his options. They were few. He could attempt to break the blockade, but his tactical computers gave the Zephrani fleet a 12% probability of success. He could try to hold position, but his troops would be dead or incapacitated within another month. He could call for reinforcements from the greater empire, but that would take 4 months minimum, and the empire would never send them. This campaign had already failed. The empire did not throw good resources after bad. What are your terms? Thyzen asked, and the words tasted like ash. Chen's expression softened slightly. Unconditional evacuation. Your forces will be allowed to leave with your wounded. We will provide medical assistance where possible. In exchange, you will return any captured human assets, pay reparations for damages caused during the occupation, and most importantly, you will tell the truth about what happened here. You will tell the Galactic Council. You will tell the Zephrani Empire. You will tell anyone who will listen. Earth is not a prize to be taken. It is a warning. Why? Thyzen asked. Why not destroy us? You have us trapped. You could take revenge. Chen stood, and despite her small stature, barely reaching Thyzen's chest, she seemed to tower. Because we did not want this war, War Master. We have never wanted any war. You invaded us. We defended ourselves, but we are not executioners. We do not want to be monsters. We want you to leave. We want you to go home. And we want you to make sure this never happens again. She paused at the door. We are a young species, War Master. We have only been in space for 2 centuries. But we have been on Earth for 2 million years. This world has tried to kill us in every way imaginable. It has failed every time. We have survived ice and fire, predators and plagues, starvation and slaughter. We have survived Earth. If you think you can conquer us, you are welcome to try, but understand that you are not fighting humans. You are fighting a species shaped by the most hostile crucible in the known galaxy, and we will always find a way to survive. The evacuation took 2 weeks. Zephrani's ships descended to collect their troops, and the humans watched without interference. They provided medical supplies for the sick. They offered food from their own stocks when Zephrani vessels ran critically low. They were gracious in victory. As the last Zephrani dropship prepared to depart, Thyzen found himself speaking with a human technician, a young female who had been assigned to help coordinate the evacuation. She had been one of the workers who had smiled that knowing smile during the occupation. "You sabotaged our equipment from the beginning," Thyzen said. "It was not a question." The technician shrugged. "Did not need to, War Master. Your equipment was not built for Earth. Wrong atmospheric filters, wrong materials, wrong assumptions. You designed everything for your world, stable, predictable, safe. Earth is none of those things. We tried to tell the galaxy that Earth was different, but nobody listened. Sometimes people have to learn by experience." "Your species is terrifying," Thyzen said quietly. The technician's smile faded, replaced by something more serious. "No, sir. Our planet is terrifying. We are just the species that survived it. There is a difference." Thyzen returned to Zephrani space in disgrace. The Empire demanded an explanation for the failure of an invasion fleet. He provided it in exhaustive detail before the Imperial Council. The Council was silent for a long time after he finished. Finally, the High Counselor spoke. "You are telling us that the Zephrani Empire, conqueror of 847 worlds, was defeated by weather and wildlife. And gravity," Thyzen added, "and disease and seismic activity, and the fact that humans are adapted to conditions that would kill our soldiers in days. We did not lose to the human military, High Counselor. We lost to their homeworld, and they knew we would." The news spread across the galaxy with the speed of scandal. The mighty Zephrani, defeated without firing a shot, by a planet. The Galactic Council received a transmission from Earth. It was formal, polite, and devastating in its courtesy. Humanity requested that Earth's system be designated a hazard zone for non-Death World species. They emphasized their willingness to continue trade and diplomatic relations, but they wanted certain facts understood. The transmission included comprehensive data on Earth's environmental conditions, medical reports on how various galactic species would react to Earth's biosphere, tactical analysis of the Zephrani occupation and why it failed. It was presented as an educational resource, freely available to all species. "So this does not happen again," the human ambassador said in the transmission. "We do not want to be conquerors. We do not want to be monsters. We simply want to exist on our world in peace. Surely that is not unreasonable." The galactic response was immediate. 36 species who had been considering military action against human holdings quietly canceled their plans. The Galactic Council issued a formal notice recognizing Earth's system as a restricted zone. Trade would continue, but only at designated orbital stations. Planetary landing would require explicit human authorization. One species, the Vorlak Confederation, publicly mocked the restrictions. They called humans cowards who hid behind their world. They called the Zephrani weak for failing such a simple conquest. The humans did not respond to the insults. They simply updated their navigational databases and waited. 6 months later, the Vorlak sent a strike force to prove human vulnerability. They landed on Earth without authorization, declaring they would succeed where the Zephrani had failed. The Vorlak were an aquatic species from a high-gravity water world. They were physically stronger than humans. Their technology was advanced. Their confidence was absolute. They lasted 11 days. Earth's oceans were home to creatures the Vorlak had never imagined: great white sharks, saltwater crocodiles, box jellyfish, Portuguese man-o'-war, stonefish, blue-ringed octopi, and those were just the animals. The microscopic life in Earth's oceans proved even more deadly to Vorlak biology. The Vorlak retreated, their forces decimated. They made no public statement, but they added their own warnings to the galactic databases. Earth's reputation grew. It became a legend, a cautionary tale, a joke among military planners. They called it the trap. the most effective prison in the galaxy because anyone who tried to occupy it became trapped by the very world they sought to conquer. Humanity's place in galactic politics shifted. They were no longer dismissed as primitive newcomers. They were respected, sometimes feared, always approached with caution, not because they were aggressive, not because they were powerful, but because they came from a world that had been trying to kill them for millions of years, and they had not only survived but thrived. Trade with humanity flourished. Human agricultural products, grown in conditions that would devastate most species' crops, were prized for their nutritional density. Human medical knowledge, earned through combating countless diseases, advanced galactic medicine by decades. Human material science, developed to survive corrosive atmospheres and extreme temperatures, revolutionized construction. But nobody invaded human space again. On Earth, in a military museum in Geneva, they erected a monument. It listed 50,000 names. These were the humans who had volunteered to stay during the Zephrani occupation. They had maintained the illusion of a functioning society. They had subtly guided the invaders toward the most hostile environments. They had waited and endured while Earth did what it had always done. The plaque beneath the names read, "They asked if we would die for Earth. We showed them we did not have to. We just had to survive it longer than they could." Thyzen, in his retirement, would sometimes review the records of the Earth campaign. He had not been punished for the failure. The Imperial Council recognized that he had been defeated by factors beyond his control, but his military career was over. No commander who lost 150,000 troops to weather and wildlife could be trusted with another command. He did not resent the humans for this. In a strange way, he respected them. They had been honest from the beginning. They had classified their world accurately. They had tried to warn the galaxy. Nobody had listened. And when push came to shove, they had not destroyed their enemies. They had simply let their world be itself. Thyzen often wondered what humanity would become. A species forged on such a world, adapted to such extremes, carrying within them the legacy of millions of years of survival against impossible odds. What would they do when they finally moved beyond their single system? When they colonized worlds that were easier, softer, less hostile? Would they lose their edge, growing comfortable and weak? Or would they remain what Earth had made them? Survivors who could endure anything, anywhere, because nothing in the galaxy could be worse than the world that had raised them. Thyzen suspected he knew the answer. He had seen it in their eyes during the occupation, in that knowing smile that had haunted his troops. Humans were not going anywhere. They would survive. They always had. And the galaxy, whether it wanted to or not, would have to make room for them.